If you were asked, what is grace? How would you answer? Now think about it. It's a simple question. We're Christian. What is grace? Well, if I was a business person, I might think of a grace period. If I was in the performing arts, I might say, that dancer moved gracefully from one side of the stage to another. If we're talking personally between one another, we could say, well, John handled that mistake with grace. But as a Christian, how do we answer what is grace? It's such an important question for us to ponder, to know that Martin Luther states that it is the head and cornerstone which alone begets, nourishes, builds, preserves, and protects the church. Without it, the church of God cannot subsist for 1 hour. Grace. I believe it's something that we ought to know. It is something that is very essential to our very life as a Christian. As a matter of fact, we cannot live one day or subsist 1 hour without it. It is what we breathe as Christians. It is what we live on. Whenever I ponder such questions, especially as a storyteller, I always think back to how God has worked in my life and the world around me. And so I remember back to the old farm that we have. And when I was younger, we used to spend our time on the summers on the farm. And I would work for my grandfather, and me and my cousin Tim would just work ourselves to the bone for him. And it was just a joy for us to be there, baling hay, being in the field, chopping things, digging things, helping, riding horses. It was a wonderful time. And I remember one year when we came, Tim and I, my grandfather went out to buy us some new breeches. That's the term he used, and that meant boots, some new blue jeans, and a couple of work shirts, and some gloves. We were going to work pretty hard that summer, and so he had just bought us those wonderful things. And the very first week, he liked to take my grandfather, he called it taking 15. After the morning chores, he would go take 15, and then us kids would just run amok throughout the farm, getting ourselves into mischief and enjoying ourselves. And on this farm, there was a beaver dam. Now, if any of you have been around beaver dams, they like to do things in mud. And they have sticks and mud and all sorts of kind of sticky things. And, of course, we went straight down to the beaver dam that day in our brand new breeches. And we played and had a great old time. And you see, at our farm, 12 o'clock is lunch or dinner. Not 11:59, not 12:01. At 12 o'clock we eat, and Tim and I could sense it's time to go. So we hopped up from the mud, and we moved toward the house. Now my grandmother was looking out her window. She had it above her sink, and saw us walking up the lane. Now, this is the kind of mud where she probably smelled us before she saw us. I mean, this is good old beaver dam, moggy, buggy kind of mud. And when she saw us come up, covered in mud and our brand new breeches, she came storming out that door and go, "What are you doing? We just brought you those brand new clothes. Look at you. You're covered in mud from head to toe. What am I going to do with you?" But, our little grandkid looks. It's Grandma. Give her the look, and we're going to work for you. And so, of course, Grandma immediately forgave us. You kids, come here. I forgive you guys. Come on. But we still had a problem, didn't we? Even though we were forgiven, we're still covered in what? We still have a problem. And so, using the best of farm justice, she went to the back of the house where the spigot was. She hooked a hose to it, flipped up the handle, and began to hose us both down, right in those brand new breeches. And we were covered in water, and we were almost enjoying it, and she was hosing us down, and we took off all of our clothes right down to the bare essentials. threw those clothes that were now mud-free up on the line, and then we jogged back into the house. You see, grace is not only about forgiveness, but it is also about justification. In order to eat at our master's table, my grandfather, we needed to be put back in line with what was right. And with that hose, my grandmother did that. She justified us so that we could sit at the master's table once again. Jesus Christ came to do the same for us. Now, almost from the minute we left the Garden of Eden, of course, by God's command, we were tied to the soil. From the minute we left paradise, we were doomed to get messy. We were doomed to get dirty. We started off with a good pair of breeches, but we immediately began to get clean or dirty. And so we were in desperate need of someone who could come and take care of us, to forgive us, to justify us, and do this by grace. We read John 1, 14 through 17. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. From the fullness of His grace, we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses. You see that muddiness, that dirtiness, the things we have to do. That came from Moses and the law. But grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. That cleansing, that forgiveness, that justification came through Jesus Christ to us. John 14:6, Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one goes to the Master's table except through my forgiveness and my justification, freely given to us through His grace. And so my grandma wasn't half off when it came to what grace meant. You see, she needed to forgive us because we were in it. We were in big trouble. We were covered in it from head to toe. And so that is what grace is to begin with. The forgiveness of sin. Ephesians 1:7, in Him we have redemption through His blood, Jesus Christ. The forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace. Now this forgiveness runs deep. And this forgiveness for us is forever. But you know, I guarantee you, that wasn't the first time and the last time I would have to be hosed down. I would get covered in it again pretty quickly. See, forgiveness, though it is a wonderful and an incredible, graceful act for us, is a repeated thing because we are repeat offenders. And so Jesus Christ, in His eternal capacity, in His all-powerful being, continues to forgive us, to forgive us, to forgive us, to forgive us. John 5:24. I tell you the truth, whoever hears my word and believes Him who has sent me has eternal life and will not be condemned. He has crossed over from death to life. This forgiveness isn't just about hosing the mud off. This is not just about the forgiveness of one act. This is an eternal type of forgiveness. This is the type of grace that brings us from the very death of our dirtiness to the life. We are set free into Christ.